Hello, everybody. So we are going to be talking more about ambient AI agents and how they can help you power your workflows. It's going to be an extension of what Ryan and Chris were talking about, but they were talking about it more from a self-deflection perspective, but here we're going to be looking at it more from a support engineer perspective. Right, let's get started with few quick stats. So we are seeing a massive shift, faster than most of us are expecting. We're looking at about 33% of enterprise software applications having agentic AI included by 2028. And by 2029, we're looking at about 80% of common customer service requests being resolved by agentic AI. And in another year, we are looking at machines having interactions in the context of customer service. That's the future of customer service, but it's really important for us to strike a balance between autonomy and the customer centricity aspect of it. While AI agents are going to be handling a lot of the common routine interactions, humans will still be involved doing best what machines cannot do, which is solving complex problems, where there's going to be empathy required, there's going to be ethical decisions being made. So we're still going to be needed. Now, at SupportLogic, we are already at the forefront of this transformation. And I'm sure throughout the conference, you have seen a glimpse of a lot of our AI agents. We're going to be unpacking some of them and showing the real value that they're going to bring. And we have Paul with us, who's the global head of support for support operations for CyberArk. We heard from him this morning as well. So he's going to be sharing his real insights from adopting SupportLogic AI agents. All right. So before we get into Paul's story, let's just look at a lay of land here. Now, enterprise data sprawl is still an issue. So research shows that 71% of organizations are still using about 6 to 7 tools. And the support engineers in those organizations are looking at anywhere between 16 to 17 data sources before they can find an answer. And what that means is they're going to be surfacing inconsistent, fragmented information when they're presenting it to customers, and it could very well result in delayed resolution time and an increased operational cost. Now, we all know that in complex tech support, it's not always about pulling out a magical knowledge article that will solve the problem. It's about finding a possible solution path and guiding your support engineers and handholding them to resolve the complex issues more easily and efficiently. Now, at SupportLogic, we have purpose-built ambient AI agents. I'm going to be talking a little bit about these. I'm sure a lot of you are using it. Let's start with the summarization agent. Now, summarization agent, of course, does a lot of things. We'll start with case summarization. I think this is something that probably many of you are very well aware of. So we start off with a complex support case. Again, it has certain nuances to it. A lot of back and forth interactions would be involved. The jargon that's used is going to be very, very subtle. Understanding the signals in that is very critical. So we take these long-running cases and we summarize it by identifying what exactly the problem is, not just what the problem the customer reported, but also the actual underlying issue as it evolves, right? As comments are added, as the case evolves, we keep understanding and evolving the problem as well. And of course, we are able to identify what are the next steps and what are the planned actions and where exactly the status is. And coming to knowledge agent, I know we heard a lot about it in the previous session from Ryan. We have a precision drag engine. What that means is you give us a complex answer question, and we are able to give you an answer, a precise answer, irrespective of how messy, incomplete your knowledge, the underlying knowledge sources are. A little bit of how the sausage is made, like how are we able to achieve that? Number one is we have a zero-shot retrieval. What that means is we do not have to train our model to answer every possible question type. So what that means is if you ask a question, a complex question, we are able to understand it, look through the knowledge sources, and be able to find the answer. The second is that we use a fusion model. We don't rely on one retrieval engine. So we orchestrate the search across multiple engines, each one having a different algorithm underneath it. And then we get the results from across it, cross-rank it, and then we present the results to the user. So what this helps us is both increase the efficiency as well as the coverage. And the third aspect is the two-step retrieval process that we have. First is we do a document retrieval. So we look through all the documents. We identify the best fit, where the knowledge is, and we rank them. We take the top-ranked documents, and then we do a passage retrieval. We go deep into each one of those selected documents, look through the passages where we could find a potential answer, and that helps us, again, with both the breadth as well as the depth to find the right answer. Now, coming to response agent, again, this one kind of looks and leverages a lot of what we do with summarization agent. It looks through the case summarization, knowledge summarization, and it is able to generate responses that support engineers can leverage. All right, so with that, after setting the stage of what we at SupportLogic are offering through these 3 AI agents, let's hear from Paul. So Paul, tell us, like, before you started using SupportLogic for issue resolution, tell us some of the challenges that you were facing.
Thank you, Krithika, and thank you for the overview. One of the biggest challenges that support engineers were facing in trying to find the right answers to the customer questions is basically the fragmentation of the data and finding the right knowledge, especially for the junior side of the support org. Somebody new, somebody less than a year or a year to 2 years within the support org, they have not yet grasped what is the right data, what is not, and that led to a lot of searches within our Salesforce system, that's our system of record. And then again, there is the documentation site that has additional data. Then we have the bugs in Jira. So there is a lot of data for somebody to look through, and making sense of it and doing it quickly, that's a fairly big lift for someone who's still getting their footing together on the support team. So what we wanted to do is simplify that motion, remove the need for the people to search, right? Remove the need to go to different sources, and present all of that, all the relevant information for them right within the case. And this is where ResolveSX widget from SupportLogic comes in, because it creates a very neat summary of the case for everybody to use. But most importantly, there are concrete steps that people can take, that support engineers can take to help their customers resolve the issue. And in addition to that, there is a link to every data source that this answer was pulled from. So they can validate whether the knowledge is located in an old resolved case or a knowledge article or in the product documentation, or maybe there is a bug that was discovered 2 days ago, and understand whether this knowledge applies to the current situation.
That's great, Paul. So what was your process, right? Like, how did you roll this out here? Can you share a little bit about that journey?
Definitely. So there is obviously, it's a big change. It's a big change in process on how the support team uses knowledge, right? And as with anything in generative AI and overall AI technologies, right, your responses are going to be as good as the underlying data and as the training that you provide to your system. So we started small, and we selected, out of more than 300 people in a support team, we selected 25-ish subject matter experts. The goal for this initial cohort was to ensure that the widget displays the correct information and does not display incorrect information. It was probably the longest phase for the deployment, because we had to go through several cases. Everybody on the team was reporting inconsistencies, right? We had to collaborate a lot with the SupportLogic team, with Kevin, to go through what was not working, making the tweaks, retesting it again. And once everything started to make sense to this group of subject matter experts, we expanded it to more people, and that was mostly managers and the senior engineers. And the goal there was to basically do a quick sanity check on what the first group did. Did we miss anything obvious? That part was fairly quick, about 3 weeks. And once this group did not find any big issues, we started to roll it out to the entire team. The other important piece is that when you search the data directly and review the information, right, the data is coming to you. You can rely on it. When the data is generated for you, when you're looking at it, there are hallucinations, although SupportLogic does a really good job at controlling that. There may be the sources might not be as relevant. So the important piece was to make sure that, especially junior engineers, know that what they see in the widget is not absolute truth, that they need to trust it, but they also need to verify. And what we did with that is, before enabling it to everybody, we created this very quick training, and that was a SupportLogic. So we created the training in our learning management system. Everybody was subscribed to that training, and once the people went through the training, we would enable the widget for them, right? And then we made sure that everybody had to take it. This training process took about 4 weeks before we got to every laggard, but I would say by mid-July, we had everybody on the team enabled.
That's awesome. So Paul, from an outcome perspective, could you share a little bit about some of the efficiency gains that you have had, or any customer outcomes that you would like to share with the team?
As I said, we're just starting on the journey, right? The 100% of the team got the widget rolled out to them sometime mid-July, right? We're now mid-September, so one of the things that we can say is that we're seeing the share of cases that are resolved within 3 iterations go up from around 61% to almost 70%, right? We're looking at least 10% increase in the productivity for the team, because now we are saving a lot of time on the research, and we are also getting more precise results for the team. And obviously, right now also is a pretty good time to go back to the team and see how we can fine-tune the sources, the results, the training, to get even better results available to the engineers.
Awesome. So before we hear more from Paul, I'm going to just get into a little bit more details on how we have been evolving our AI agents. Right? So we talked about summarization agent. So this case summarization is just one bit, right? So we look at the case, we tease out the problem, current status, plan next steps. We present it to a human. But there is a lot more insights about the case we can get that we also want to use to power several workflows in the context of support. I'll give you a couple of examples. So when a support ticket is logged, not always is the problem clear, and not always is it primed up for a support engineer to pick up and start troubleshooting. So when we summarize a case, we saw value in also generating a clarity score for the problem. So what that score will tell us is, hey, are we ready to even perform a knowledge search? Is it ready for a support engineer to pick up and run with it? So that use case, that's an example of an insight that we capture as part of summarizing a case. Another example is when we do a knowledge search, of course, you can pass the entire case context, or you can be very specific and pass a specific problem statement to go look through the knowledge sources. So in that front, what we are also moving to is from an on-demand case summary to an automatic case summary. The difference here is that every case that you have, all of your historical cases, are automatically summarized when they come into SupportLogic. When they get created, as they get updated, we keep automatically summarizing it. Of course, we understand that we don't want to summarize the entire context. We have intelligence built in to incrementally summarize every update. So The ability, once we have auto-summarized cases, then we go ahead and do a search with a problem statement. We are searching against a database of cases that also have a problem statement tagged towards it. If it is a resolved case, it also has a solution that's tagged to it. So that makes the search really precise. And of course, there are other examples. I'll talk about another one. So when we do summary, we tag issues, but not just that, we also tag what is the potential churn reason for this case. Is there a churn signal? What is the reason? If there is an escalation, what is a possible escalation reason? Some of these insights, when it is done at every case level automatically, it powers a lot of these workflows that you're seeing up there. It improves our knowledge search, it improves knowledge generation, it improves our response generation, and overall, like just the summarization goes multifold, right? You're able to do case cohort summarization, account cohort summarization, and do a lot of mining across to determine patterns and next steps and so on. So that's the evolution of our summarization agent. Okay. With that, we saw how the summarization agent is powering the knowledge agent. So knowledge agent in itself has also been evolving. And one of the key things, I know Chris also talked about it, like how we generate a draft knowledge article from a closed case. So we have leveraged the case summarization and all of the knowledge that's stored, like all the troubleshooting insights that are captured in the context of a case. We take that and we generate a draft knowledge and present it to a support engineer for review, and the support engineer can then publish it. So this is a feature I think holds a lot of value, and I know, Paul, we have talked about it. Would really love to hear your perspective on how you would see, how you would potentially start using this.
This is one of the features that I'm really looking forward to implementing in our environment, because as Chris mentioned, we had some conversations on the sides about this exact topic. There is a lot of effort going on within support teams in writing knowledge articles, right? And those knowledge articles are written for the purpose of being found by a keyword search, using a search engine, and then displayed to a person who would read it, understand it, internalize it, implement it. And ChatGPT broke us whole. Nobody does that anymore. What people are expecting is, here's my problem, give me the response, right? And what we are looking to implement is to use the knowledge agent to turn those case summaries into, I call them proto articles. There might be a better name for that, but something that we can feed into the AI bot, customer-facing AI bot, which would provide the customers with direct answers to their questions, to their problems, and also possibly build it and collaborate with our product and technology team to build that troubleshooting agent into the product. So as the customers run into issues, we can provide them with the resolution steps for those issues without even having to go to customer portal, ticketing system, all of that jazz, and get to the value of why they're using the product faster.
That's awesome, Paul. Thank you so much. That's really validating the approach we are taking here. So once these draft knowledge articles are published, what we are now looking at is also, like you said, leveraging that as part of the search. So now we have knowledge articles approved by the support engineer, but formatted in a really nice way that kind of lends its way to the knowledge search and the precision that it can offer.
And I think also the other thing there, Krithika, is a lot of effort also goes into, as you mentioned, formatting.
Yep.
Just to make sure that the articles are understandable to a human viewer. If we're starting to look at the AI system generating the knowledge on demand, the formatting part becomes less important, and the knowledge itself, making sure that we save the knowledge, becomes much more important, thus freeing the engineer from all of this very tedious work to make sure they use the right font and the right style guide and everything else, and constantly and focus them on saving the knowledge and making the knowledge available.
Wonderful. All right, so I think along those lines, we have some future roadmap items that we're looking into, for example, tagging the metadata on the case, I think, which also will be very relevant. Now, coming to another phase of a knowledge agent, so we, of course, We want to generate knowledge, and we also want to continue to improve the answer quality. Like with the summarization agent, with the order case summarization that we are doing, we saw that the precision is going to increase. But what we also think is, going back to my earlier point about in complex tech support, it's not always about presenting the right solution, but about presenting if there's a problem, like, hey, you could go down this path. This could be multiple solution paths, and depending, that's real troubleshooting, right? Being able to do that kind of a troubleshooting, the support engineer needs to be augmented with the right data. And for us to be able to pre-construct some of those problem solution graphs is something that we're looking into. And I know, Paul, we are also working on some of those, bringing in some of those troubleshooting insights into the case so that we can make this more tangible for the support engineers.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's look at the response. Thank you. The response agent. While those of you who are probably using the product know that you can manually generate a response today, what we are now able to do is automatically generate a response based on the context of the case. So if the case is, let's say, coming in, and we talked about the clarity score earlier, if the clarity score is low, the response agent understands that the case is not ready, and hence it generates a follow-up question that the support engineer can review and send it to the customer. Or it could, maybe there is an SLA due, which says that no, it's a high severity case, you need to send out an update to the customer every 8 hours. Now the response agent understands that case context. It is able to generate an appropriate draft with the right update about the case and present it to the human to review and send it out. So all of this, again, applied with the right tonality to it. And of course, here you see a couple of examples. I know, Paul, you mentioned that you see a lot of value in using the response agent as well. Maybe some insights about that would be great.
Correct. In our organization, we have over 300 people, right? We provide support to our customers in English, right? I would probably get a guess, 70% of our support engineers did not grow up speaking English. I did not grow up speaking English myself. For somebody for whom English is a second language, formulating intricate and complex technological concepts and communicating them to the customer while maintaining the right attitude and tonality and politeness, right, is a significant challenge, right? When people struggle with, I don't want to say struggle with the language, but when people struggle with making that construct, usually they become very robotic and very technical, and a lot of that is not conducive to providing good customer service. So using technology to create the right answer, to tweak the tonality of the response to where the customer is, take into account all the signals that we have in the case already, right, and adjusting it to them. I think that brings a lot of value to the conversation and can help us communicate better, provide better service to the customers.
Wonderful. All right, now let's take a look at how these 3 AI agents that we talked about are going to power the persona-driven workflows. So we'll talk about one workflow today, the issue resolution agentic workflow. Now it's precisely these 3 AI agents that are working behind the scenes. So what happens is it's autonomously looking at every case that comes in, every case update that comes in. The summarization agent is automatically summarizing it, it's determining the clarity score, it's doing a knowledge search, it's determining a match score, and if there is a right answer, it presents it to the user for approval. If the clarity is not clear, it knows that, okay, it's not ready, but I need to generate a follow-up. So it generates a follow-up and presents it to the human for review. So it's doing a lot of work behind the scenes and surfacing the right cases with the right information to the human to quickly review and take actions. It's also prompting possible actions. It's, again, not always a review, right? Maybe there are other possible actions for that particular context. For example, maybe a case a solution was recommended to the customer, but the customer hasn't responded yet. Now, in this case, maybe the prompt is, okay, why don't you send a follow-up notification, but you might also want to generate a knowledge article in the meantime. So the system is not only surfacing the cases, but guiding the support engineer with the next possible actions and providing drafts as and when possible, right? So it's just making it easier and easier. And of course, it's always making sure that the human is in the loop. So now that we understand the power of how ambient AI agents can come together to power your enterprise workflows, what are we seeing, right? Like by deploying these AI agents, there's a couple of different ways we could do this, right? Like we have humans working a certain way. There are existing workflows, but we augment AI agents, agentic AI. They're just helping the humans, but then the workflow is the same, right? Like for example, you just present a summary, you present a search. So that's first level. With that, already we are able to see a big reduction in terms of resolution times. But if we take it to the next level, like we saw with the issue resolution agentic workflow, perhaps the workflow is the same, but then it's not the human that's doing everything alone. There's agents working behind the scenes and automating a lot of things. When we get to that middle lane, we're looking at a reduction of 20 to 40%. And of course, there's a third level where you're like completely reinventing your enterprise workflows. That's, again, going to be a bigger shift. Now, with what we have seen so far, we're already getting to the middle lane. And of course, we talked a lot about these ambient AI agents and how they can help power workflows that are persona-driven. We offer a lot of these workflows out of the box, but these ambient AI agents are always also available through Data Cloud, through MCP, through events. So we have a way to integrate flexibly with your existing enterprise workflows. So you will be able to leverage our ambient AI agents to reinvent your existing workflows as well. With that said, maybe Paul, I would like to hear if you want to share with the thought leaders, with the leaders over here, some insights or advice on how you could go about this journey of adopting AI agents, and just any advice that you want to give.
Yeah. So I think I'm probably going to repeat a lot of what's been said today.
Okay.
I think going gradually, making sure that there is a plan to do it in phases and validate the results after every phase is really a great way to go. And the second thing, I would strongly recommend to make sure that the team who uses those agents understand what the agents can and cannot do, what their limitation is, and how to go about it. I think that's a critical piece. And the last thing is always to maintain the feedback loop, because something that works today and something that gets really great results today is not guaranteed to do so tomorrow, and you always need to keep you need to keep your finger on the pulse of this process and make sure there is a continuous improvement going on, that all of the incorrect answers, all of the issues are logged, reviewed, addressed, and going through that kind of a feedback loop.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. All right, so that brings us to the end of the session with a few key takeaways for you. We have our SupportLogic AI agents ready, and they're being deployed in production, and we are seeing real results. We are able to power agentic workflows. Of course, like Paul mentioned, start small, start with 2 to 3 AI agents, identify the right business case, then the agents, and then see ROI, and then scale. And like I mentioned, we have multiple different options. You can leverage the workflows that we are delivering out of the box, or you can work with the ambient AI agents, integrated with your enterprise systems as well. All right. That would be all.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes, I think we have a question here.
One, two.
So
First of all, CyberArk, we also partner with CyberArk. Dinesh, good talking with you. With the drafting a knowledge article at the end, so I started at Finastra 11 years ago as a customer support rep on the phones, and we didn't have all these fancy platforms, but now we do. And one of the goals for each engineer is to create 2 knowledge articles a month. So it's a lot about like building a knowledge base, but really the quality, we're starting to work on that now. And is there a level of review before you publish it? Because it looks like you just click go and then it goes.
So the point of reviewing an article before you publish it is when you try to write something that another human being will read. Okay? What we want to do is stop publishing for people. Okay? The point is, what we want to get to is a state where the customer goes into your either case submission process or your portal or within the product, asks the question and gets a generated answer. Okay? The process, the AI process that is responsible for generating that answer will be reading all of those articles and creating the content based on what the question was and the context around it and the intricacies around it, right? It won't be the publishing of a KB article that fits 500 use cases and everybody needs to figure out how it fits into their deployment. That's the idea. And for that point, if you look at it this way, you don't really need to worry about duplication, right? You don't need to worry about the format of the article, and even that the language in the article is perfect, right? What you need to worry about is that the content is accurate and the content doesn't have customer data. The AI generative process will take care of finding the RAG process will take care of finding the right proto-article, or proto-articles, and generating the right content for your customer. That's the idea here. And of course, there will be a process to publish something in the official knowledge base, right? There will always be situations where we need to have something that customers need to link and forward, right? Those things will go through a normal process. When you go through cases, for example, when you're an engineer and you KPI'd on attaching articles, right? What really happens is engineers just attach articles. It doesn't really, if you go and review every article that they attach and see how relevant those articles are to the cases that they solve, you'll probably find some interesting data. They are doing what you're measuring them, right? And the point is, take them out of the working to KPI and get them into working to create knowledge.
That was great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool.
I think we had a question over here.
Yeah, I'm gonna apologize ahead of time. I have 4 questions, not just one. So just going back to the different agents you had, right? The first question I have is with the summarization agent or the knowledge agent, how are you evaluating the quality of the summary generator? Because traditional scores like Rouge or Blue won't work, right? So do you have a single metric of evaluation? And the reason that's interesting is we do want to monitor for drift as systems progress, use cases progress. We want to make sure the summaries are of a high enough quality. So is there a single metric that's spit out by the system on the quality of the summary generator? That's the first question.
All of those agents, they work in tandem, right? None of those agents, so like for example, summarization agent never works on its own.
But let's say I want to use it on its own. Can I get a score for the summary generated?
So I don't think you can.
So there's the case summary. So we do generate a score now to understand if the problem is captured clearly. That's the clarity score of the problem. If the clarity is good, then it's qualified to the next step, which is now we're saying, okay, let's do a knowledge search. And when we do a knowledge search, We look at, you saw the process that we go through, right? Like the 3-step process where we go through.
Let's just stay on the clarity score for a little bit. Is that like n-gram based? Like I'm wondering how exactly to interpret this score. I understand the word clarity, but from a precision and recall perspective, right? If you have a confusion matrix, there's a particular calculation that you would do. If you look at rouge or blue score, they would do n-gram overlaps and things like that. So what exactly does the clarity score measure at a system level?
So it's a LLM-generated score, so
So it's LLM as a judge, it's a secondary LLM that's judging the summary from the primary LLM, is it?
So the idea is that we do everything in one shot. So we don't use multiple calls. So in one shot, we generate the problem, and we also generate a clarity score for the problem. Likewise, when we do a knowledge search, in one shot, we do the knowledge search, we do the citations, and then we also see if there is a good match score there. So it's all done in one shot.
Got it. Okay. And then second question I have. So I think you said there's like the fusion model, right? There's some orchestration happening where depending on what needs to be generated out, you pick whichever model underneath to use. Is that custom models that you guys have built or off-the-shelf models like Sonnet?
No, this is purely internal custom that we have built. That's the IP where we have a fusion model.
And then on the doc retrieval, you said you also do passage retrieval, right?
Correct.
So what's the chunking strategy there? Do I need to have the docs in a particular format like Markdown?
No, not at all. No.
So how does it chunk?
So we do, again, I think we can get into the specific maybe in a deeper session, but the idea is that the content is chunked, and when we do the passage retrieval, again, the size of the chunk depends, right? Let's say if it is a very sparse knowledge, then maybe we do a bigger chunk. If it is more intensive, we do a smaller chunk. So based on that, we will be able to.
So you automatically zoom in and out?
We do the chunking internally.
And then the final question I have is, you were talking about the taxonomy. So you said there's also the possibility in the future roadmap of tagging the cases. Is that some sort of a taxonomy tagging that you would do? Like, for example, as the cases are coming in, the system is automatically clustering them into issue types, for example?
Which actually that we do already today.
Okay.
So when we summarize the case, we already tag an issue to the case. Like there's a bunch of tags that we attach to the case.
And is that a dynamic tag set or is it a static tag set?
It's dynamically generated as part of the summarization. It's not coming from a static list.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
And actually, I can talk a little bit about the tagging piece as part of the implementation. So when we prepared for the implementation, the team presented me with the tags generated out of our knowledge, out of our data. And then we went through a validation exercise just to make sure that what they generated made sense for our environment. And that's went into the initial setup of the tool.
Awesome.
Do we have any more questions for this session?
You may have already covered this, but for the ingestion, are you ingesting public product documentation as well so that it has both of that and then it can proceed?
Yes. We do ingest our publicly facing documentation, and when the widget generates information out of the public documentation, there would be a link to that page saying, this is where I got it from. So we index the docs, we index the cases, the bugs, and I think our enhancement requests as well.
How long did that process take?
That was like a day or two, and it didn't take long at all. First of all, the cases were already in the system because we're using the core products, right? So there isn't a lot of effort. We had to set up indexing of our documentation, right? There is a whole process that we went through because getting it out of the web is not a very optimal way of doing it, so we had to export the raw docs into a S3 bucket, which incidentally we use for other processes as well, so we just enabled SupportLogic to go get it from there, and that's where it is.
Thank you for your questions, Krithika and Paul. Thanks so much for your session.